All right, this is another one of our Daves, Mr. David Evans. We've put forth, he's had several budget scenarios going through, and some of them are how to create better services as well as generate more revenues. What you've seen, what I've put together is basically a one to try and get some more revenues in there and see what we can cover. It's a little bit different than what his requests have been, and I just think if you want to speak about the whole, the department as a whole, what some of the increases would be, where we could generate some more revenues, that would be, I think that's great. And Dave can introduce himself the rest of the way.
Hi.
Morning, Dave.
Good morning. I just go over some of the increases that we have. Most of the line items are the same amount. Just go over the increases. The part-time on-call, currently we have a second ambulance manned with part-time staff for 12 hours a day. That's been working out great. It's been taking a lot of calls because we're having more and more back-to-back calls. So that second truck is able to cover it without having to call in. Crews off duty, which we may or may not get, or calling in other towns, mutual aid, and when we call in the other towns, they take the money back with them. So we've been covering a lot of our calls, and we're looking to go 24-hour coverage, because some of the requirements now with the state is if we have a trauma patient, we have to go to the trauma center. And the closest one to us is in Providence, Rhode Island. So by the time we get over there and back and do the patient transfer, we could be there 2.5 hours, 3 hours, truck out of town with no coverage unless we have a second truck that's here on standby. That's the big salary increase. Some of the other increases, our billing service, that's gone up slightly because we've also had increased call volume, and the way the billing company works, they take a percentage of what they collect. So with more calls, more billing, the more money we make, the more money they make. So that's a slight increase there.
Can you tell us how many calls you're getting?
We're doing just shy of I think last year we did 3903 or something. So calls for service, 3,900 plus. I mean, we're busy, and that's a lot of calls to do with one truck. And even with the second truck, that's a lot of calls. Other purchase services, that's doubled because the last couple of years, the sheriff's office has charged us for the radio communication service. When we call the hospital and talk to the doctor, they charge us a $5 fee or $5+ fee for that service. And they never charged that before in the last 30 years that we've used it. And now they've started charging it 2 years ago. We didn't budget for it last year, but this year we have to budget for it.
Basically, they were thinking of ways to generate revenue, so they decided
Smelt
to
of
charge us.
that, yeah.
So.
Medical supplies, that went up slightly because we're having more and more supplies that we need to replenish. And basically everything else is, the line items are about the same.
Go ahead, Donna.
How many working ambulances do you have now?
Currently we have 3 that are working.
3?
We have the new one's a 2014. We have a 2001, which needs to be replaced, and we have a 2006, which is 10 years old now.
So you've only got the one, really?
Yeah.
Depending.
And thankfully, the new one is all-wheel drive too, right? It's a
Yeah,
four-wheel.
four-wheel drive.
Do you have any
ambulance.
capital plan? Do you have it to increase?
Well, we have the plan, and with the new Walmart, there's some money for a public safety vehicle, which either ambulance or other public safety, depending what they choose. And if we can use that money, we can just make up the difference in cost from what they provide.
But we built this capital, the lease
Right,
program
and-
right into the budget,
Right.
right?
Right, that's why it's in there, so you can
Right.
see the payments and
Right.
And
after.
the current ambulance is a 3-year lease. We've already made 2 payments. This amount would be for the 3rd-year lease. And then we plan on keeping that amount going forward so that we can replace ambulances.
You may have to just adjust it 5,000 a year or something, depending on what the cost increases.
When you get a new capital line, Do you transfer the equipment over? Because you look at,
Most of the equipment we transfer, but there's some things that by the time you get the ambulance, the stuff's 10 years old and wears out with the vehicle, so sometimes you have to upgrade the equipment also.
I was just trying to figure out the amount that's in the capital budget, which is like $230,000 or $240,000, and you look at the basic cost of a Type 3 ambulance, and it was about 125 to 130. So trying to figure out what's $100,000 difference between what the dealer sells the ambulance for versus what we're buying.
It also depends on what type of ambulance you're getting. If you're talking about the van one or the,
Type 3 is what we use,
Yeah.
which has got the body on the back.
Yeah, but that's, I mean, that's cheap money for a,
Well, that's what they're on there for. I mean,
but that's,
Finance Committee's got to ask those questions.
yeah.
no, that's, I would love to see that because we put out for the bid on it like we're required to. The state bid list also has nothing anywhere near that. So that's what,
That's the privilege of living in Massachusetts upcharge.
Yeah. Well, even if you look at other towns that are buying ambulances, we're getting the cheaper models compared to what they're getting, $250, $275 for an ambulance, and we're keeping ours around $215, and that's even with a heavy-duty chassis, the four-wheel drive chassis.
Yeah, because if you got four-wheel drive and heavy duty and
Yeah.
215, that was more, because these
Yeah.
were obviously
Yeah,
two-wheel
the
drive.
van style, which were right at the maximum weight limit for the vehicles, and that's why we upgraded the chassis to meet the state requirements for some little room to play when you put your equipment and the patients in. Otherwise, with the vans, you're right on the limit.
No, that's why I look at I agree with you, the vans are too narrow, unless maybe the Sprinter van or something that, the wider ones that are now out there, but
Yeah.
they aren't in wide use yet. When you look at the, I just lost my train of thought. Trauma going to Rhode Island. You don't take them to the Toby and then they chopper them down there?
If there's a chopper available, we will call them. That's our first option.
Because it takes your equipment out of service for
Right.
4
But
hours or
if it's
something,
gonna
or 5
take-
hours.
If they're all tied up and it's gonna take 45 minutes for a helicopter to get here, by the time they're gonna go around and play, it's another 15, 20 minutes.
But your first
could-
priority would be to chop them if
That's
you
what,
can.
yeah, that's what our protocol is.
Yeah, because that gets at your utilization of the
Right.
equipment. Yeah.
We do call that, that's our first option, but if they're not available or we have multiple patients,
Or
It's a
weather
it's a
restricting.
45-minute
things like
drive.
that, yeah.
Yeah.
Where can you land a helicopter in town?
we
Right,
have
Toby
like
Hospital.
7, 8
Toby.
different designated landing zones. If it's on the highway, you can land right on the highway.
The golf range.
But the driving range, the hospital is the primary.
The hospital has a,
They have a helipad.
It's in the parking lot.
Yeah, it's behind that small building across the street from the hospital. But that's an official pad, a concrete pad that's got the flag and the lights and stuff.
So the idea is to, with the extra part-time on-call increase, is the idea of generating revenue.
Generating revenue and providing coverage for the people, because we only have one manned ambulance, and if they're going out of town, we don't have any coverage. We try to get people back in to cover the second ambulance, but if they're working their other jobs or they're tired from working all night, they don't come back in. And that's happening more and more across all those public service, fire, all the
Right.
call fire, EMS, they don't come back like they used to. So we need to put manning in the seats.
I know, Derek, last year when you presented this, there was, with the EMS, we also had projected revenue and et cetera. Can you provide that? A little
yeah,
later?
we can put together what we have. What do we have through December? Do you remember? I thought we were at,
Let me just, I think I
It's
used-
just, I mean, for those members that have never seen this, it's an idea of understanding how EMS works as a offset.
They usually turn money into those every year.
Yeah,
right, it doesn't, this doesn't impact the general fund.
right. And I want the new people to understand how that works.
They
Let
do.
me just see.
They- Very, very,
I think we're just shy of 800,000. I had it.
wow.
Right now, we're, year-to-date revenue is 780,000.
Okay.
And that's through, is that through this January?
That's
From what time
No,
period?
up to 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
It's our last.
The July through December?
Yes. Well, it's
No,
included
through
January.
January.
Through January. And that includes actual revenues, not your billings.
That's revenue. No, the billing's probably 2 million.
Billings are a lot more than that, but.
Yeah.
That's the net revenue.
And
So
billing,
it's $100,000 a month, that's what they run.
So it's
You're right.
And-
self-sustaining here.
right, and we've always turned
Money.
money back in, $200,000 or $300,000, but with the increased budget, we're closer to 100,000 we're putting back in. And that includes, I mean, Derek gave you a letter a couple months ago that shows that we also cover our retirement costs, our insurance costs, and the other costs. So even with all those things that are not in my budget, we're paying for that, and it's still turning in $100,000.
And not at the end of the day, at the beginning of the day, we are running an ambulance service for the community, and we now have a new ambulance, and by putting more staff on there, we are able to give our people better services, which is, we forget sometimes, we want to make sure that it's covering itself, the costs and stuff. But the idea is to save lives, and it is to get people to the hospitals and do what's right. So, that's why.
I've personally experienced with an ailing elderly parent. You guys were down there all the time, and you were just so kind, and so, I just can't say enough about your department. You do professional, kind, and you're prompt.
All right, thank you.
Well, yeah, we also have to remember too that we're servicing a summer community with a major highway out there. So as far as, being available for that, it's huge. I mean, between Bourne and Marion and Wareham, I mean, that's a heck of a bit of highway to cover, and there's a lot of stuff that goes on out there.
With the weather, the last 2 weeks, we've gone to 7 rollovers on the 195, 495, 25.
Wow, I believe it. Do you have any questions? Go ahead, David.
Dave, thank you for all the efforts you're putting into this. It makes us all safer. But have you looked at other sources of revenue, such as doing transport? Are we in a position where we could, if we're not in a position
Yeah.
now, is it something that we could look at in the future?
I mean,
As
you
another
could,
source of
but
revenue.
you need the manpower, you need the additional trucks to do that. I mean, because if you keep running your trucks, doing all these transports, you're gonna wear them out a lot faster, and you'd have to have an accelerated replacement program.
But if we get another ambulance from the Walmart funds, we'd have 3 ambulances. Is it worthwhile at that point to think about increasing staff in order to do transport?
Sometimes you don't wanna interfere with the private ambulances, because that's what they do. And I just think it's a draw and wear on your manpower to do these transports, because they'd be nonstop. And, I mean, they're still working pretty hard now with doing emergency calls, but, I mean, that's something you could look at, but it's something that's, you're gonna really have to increase the staff to do that.
So you'd really have to increase the staff and facilities
Right.
in order to accommodate that. Thank
And
you.
you'd have to have enough part-time people that could cover it, because they do work other jobs, and it's just a part-time job for them and their commitment. I mean, they wanna work here, but you can't order them like you can with a full-time staff.
Mhm. But the transports are typically during the day.
Right, and there are some at night, but,
There are some at night, but typically during the day. And it's not a business that,
right.
a
and-
transport you could turn down in
And
order
the
to do an
non-emergencies.
emergency.
Yeah, the non-emergency is not the same rates as the emergency calls, so.
Aren't you you're restricted by insurance anyway, because the insurance isn't gonna pay an
Yeah.
ambulance that's overqualified to do the transportation.
Right, I mean, you only,
That's a good point, yeah.
you have to meet the criteria, and
Yeah.
they're not gonna pay you the same rate, because they don't
Exactly.
determine it
That
to be
one
an
you-
emergency, so,
You could do that with a van.
yeah. Well, right.
Yes. Well, that's the whole point. I mean,
Yeah.
his personnel are all paramedics.
Right.
Where other ambulance services aren't.
That's extended.
So he's committed to paying that rate, that's what they get paid. But if the insurance company is gonna pay for a lesser
No,
service,
we can do that.
that's all they're gonna
But
pay
it's just
for.
more money.
So he may be losing money in that particular
Yeah, 'cause
rate.
you'd have to be selective, you only wanna take the people that have insurance.
Right,
You don't want free rides. We're doing our free rides now.
yeah, exactly. Exactly, and that's part of the public service.
Right, and
We
that's
don't have a
why
choice.
we do it. That's why we have to make the extra to cover the
Yep.
non-payers.
Well, there was a question by finance committee members that's not here now about the ABNs and said that unless you sign this document, you can't get money back from people or something. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I forget
Medical
which-
necessities?
I think that's, I'm sure there's an
Well, I think-
acronym.
I'm not sure, but with emergency services, it's pretty much, you bill them and they have to pay. It's with some of the other ones that are scheduled transports but a lot of the billing, or the insurers, they make you sign contracts and they pay you a lesser rate than if you're a non-member of that.
Do we advertise the Burgess Fund there? That
It's
people
not
sign
heavily
up?
advertised, but it's on the website,
Yeah,
on the EMS site.
for people that don't know, if they pay a certain fee and it doesn't matter how many times they go to they have to be transported during the year, it covers it, and it's a minimum, it's what,
$50
$50 a year.
And
It's a
if you
great-
have
great
insurance,
fund.
Did that, yeah,
Huh?
where she lived, yeah, that's a
Yeah.
good point, yeah.
if you have insurance, we bill your insurance company.
Right.
But
and
you get the
that will cover the
service.
copay,
Yeah.
and if you don't have insurance, that'll cover the bill.
Right.
And that, we have more subscribers that don't use it, that offset the people that actually do use it.
Mm-hmm.
So we still make money on that too, a
Yeah,
little bit.
no.
Still be worth
It's a great-
advertising all the retirement communities and so forth.
Now, that's for, what, Wareham residents, is that it?
Wareham
Yeah.
residents, and it's only for emergencies.
Only for
Mhm.
emergencies.
And it's only the people that live in that residence that's
Right.
signed up.
Right. Cool. Anything else? Anything else from you, Derek?
No,
No?
it's,
Thank you.
I appreciate Dave
that one
Evans
went
as well. No, I said I've appreciated everybody in here so far, so let's let Dave feel a little bit of the love too.
All right. Only gonna be for a while.
Thank you, David.
Thanks, Dave.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, we do have a little break here, if you guys want to take a small break, because we're not expecting our next one until 11.
I've scheduled us to work through lunch, so did we want to determine we just order a couple?
What are we calling this?
No, it's a treasure collector department.
Okay.
And this is, I'm sure everybody that's been here for a while, and even the new ones know Mr. John Foster here. Serves as the treasure collector and finance director for the town. And today we'll be going over the treasure collector's budget with him. And you should all have that in your, under one of the tabs.
Are you involved in the accounting too?
Yes.
That's what I thought,
Yeah, accounting, IT, and the assessing office.
yeah, gotcha. I'll make sure.
Where am I?
And just for an update, the town accountant is not available today, but I do have, I'm able to go over her budget as well, just for any of the information.
Hi, John, what do you have for us?
Morning.
Morning.
Well, what I have is, I think you have a handout that's similar to the front page of the document that I handed out. But what I have is more detail on the second page, which explains, those are all, those salaries were set by the administrator's office based off the CBA agreements. And what I have also down below, under each line item, is a breakdown of those expenses, and a quick breakdown, and I can go through each one line by line for you. Under repairs and maintenance of office equipment, that's a copier lease. It actually comes out to within pennies of the $1,050 amount. The payroll processing fee, payroll processing, $42,000 is a contract amount. That contract expires this year. We'll have to go out to bid this fall for a new 3-year contract. Land court fees, when you get down to those land court recording, printing and mailing, I have a second document, which is the colored form. And that will give you an idea of where that money goes and what we get back from it. Okay, the land court filing fees, they're $590 to file each petition in land court. The $8,850 is for 15 petitions. We have currently in land court, I'm just going to go over some statistics from 2014, 2015. In 2014, we had 103 filings and 103 redemptions. So as many went in as came out. There were 524 subsequents, 15 final judgments. When you see that in these spreadsheets, final judgment is actually a foreclosure. Once we receive final judgment, we own the property. So there are 15 more properties that we own this year. In 2015, we have currently 132 pending land court cases, 81 potential land court cases. Those are people who have received letters from our attorneys, and if they haven't made a substantial payment, we'll be entering land court very shortly. Pending value cost analysis, there are 46 cases, and there are 29 that we determined the value wasn't worth chasing at this point. We also foreclosed on 3 cases since July 1st, so we received 3 final judgments. That is where you see the $8,850 for land court fees. The Plymouth County recording fees, we've estimated 150 new liens. We can't tell how many people. We had over 200 when we started sending out the letters, and approximately half of those paid off prior to the actual recording date, which we usually do in the spring. Let's see, printing and mailing on the bottom section of this. In fiscal year 2014, we mailed out 26,276 original motor vehicle bills, 7,844 demands, and 4,761 in warrants. That's our largest bill count. We do have boat excise, real estate, personal property, and sewer usage. I could go through the numbers with you, but altogether we mail out about 92,000 bills. 92,274 bills get sent out, mailed out, collected, including the demands and warrants.
Excuse me. Is there any other way to do that? Any other option than mailing?
Such as?
Email?
We do have electronic filing. You can get your taxes right now. The problem with that, we signed on with a company last year. I won't mention their name, but we've had problems with them. So I've been mailing out. If the 50 people that signed up for e-billing have been receiving paper bills, it's because we've had a problem getting those files up and online by the mailing date. And we have to get these bills out to people so they have 30 days to pay their bills. We've had a problem with this company. And as of the most recent billing, we still had a problem with this company, and we're working on it. But we do have an e-billing for all of your bills. All of these bills listed, you can go online and pay them.
So
Real estate bills, you can go on and...
We can drive this number down, possibly.
Yes, that's what the intent was when we signed on with that company. Unfortunately, it didn't work out that well.
Okay.
And that would save us money also. That we wouldn't be paying for the postage for those bills, the inserts, the envelopes, all of that's part of this.
And it's convenient to the receiver?
It is, as long as they receive them. Now, here's part of the problem with that. If you decide to change, if you've signed up for e-billing online, and you, for whatever reason, you've changed your name, your address, you've added your wife, or you've added your spouse, you've changed your initial, some deed change happened, you now are no longer receiving your emails, and you're off our hard copy mailing list.
But they bounce back, right?
They'll bounce back to the company, which they weren't informing us.
Oh, jeez.
And there weren't that many. Not many people signed up for it, but there were people that I spoke with over the phone. They were saying, you know, this is the time we should be receiving our bill. I signed up for your e-billing. Well, did you receive the paper bill? Yes, you did, because I sent them out until I knew this was going to work. I wasn't going to just stop sending out the paper version. So I said, that's all that matters. You receive the bill, you can pay that bill. We're working on the problem. You know, it should be straightened out. But if not, we'll go to another company, because we have had a lot of problems with that company. Let's see. Printing and mailing are from those numbers. Office supplies. Some of the larger items that are on here, it says paper, toner, ink, and other miscellaneous items. That's pens, pads, paper, everything. But it also includes about $2,000 worth of receipt books that we buy for the town. And we buy those once a year. So of that $5,000, you can consider $2,000 of that things that aren't coming to our office. Those are going out to other departments. Advertising, that's for tax titles and takings. So depending on the number of tax titles that we are going to advertise, that number could go up or down. We've been around that figure for several years now, approximately $4,000. The bonds, that's a requirement, that's for the treasurer collector and the assistant treasurer collector. We are required to have a surety bond. We are both required to have a surety bond along with the town clerk. The rest of the employees in the town are covered by our general liability insurance. Travel for conferences, that's for one person, that's UMass Amherst School and whatever other education we have throughout the year. That's just for one person. I have mine paid for by someone else. Mileage is just estimated mileage. That's $40 per month. I estimated at $40 per month. It does not include all the bank runs and all the other things we do, but it is, when we do decide to charge it back to the town, that will cover that amount. Dues and memberships are just to Plymouth County Treasurer Collectors Association and the Mass Association. The total number for the department is $392,043. It went up from last year based primarily on the salary increases and the adjustments to the CBA agreements, and we were at $385 last year and $389 the year prior. Also, just to bring this to your attention, our office now is the Finance Director Treasurer Collector's office. I'm the Finance Director Treasurer Collector. I have an Assistant Treasurer Collector who is certified both as a collector and a treasurer. I have 3 full-time clerks. They're listed on the last page. I have 1 15-hour-a-week clerk. Back when the offices were combined, there were 7 full-time positions and 2 part-time positions, and the Finance Director's operation was out of the Town Accountant's office. So as you can see, we're pretty busy now. I did include an additional spreadsheet which just shows you, when I mentioned those numbers about the number of filings, the pending court cases and all that, the detail is actually in this set of documents. It lists all the properties by address, map and lot, and owner name, and where we stand with the attorneys. So this list is in the hands of the attorneys. Our attorneys are D'Ambrosio and Brown. They've done a great job for the town. We have, this past fiscal year, we have taken in through February 17th, 2015, in total tax title receipts, $1,172,289.15. The entire fiscal year 2014 total was $914,663.10. A large amount of that was due to a case or cases that we have been chasing for years that were in the process of, we were in the process of receiving final judgment, and the properties were redeemed at the last second for approximately $600,000. Those cases were in tax title since the late 80s. So and most of that, believe it or not, because at one time those properties were not in district, they weren't in a Wareham or Onset fire district, most of that money came back to the town in fees and interest. In addition to those, the yellow highlighted figures, those are redeemed tax possessions. We took ownership of those properties, and they filed with land court. They petitioned land court to take the properties back from the town, which they were successful, and we brought in approximately $70,000 in additional funds there. But just on the town side, total tax title and tax possession redemptions, on the town side, not including the districts, the sewer, any of those line items that you see up above, the light blue is just town, and that orange figure down below is the total of everything, but the $940,000 in green, that's just on the town side. That's revenue that was brought into the town government. And if you have any questions, I can go over any of these with you. You also should have in your packet, I believe you have red, white, and blue debt schedule. What that is this book broken down into a 4-page spreadsheet. So it'll tell you what we have for town debt, what we have for Title V debt, what we have for the sewer debt, whether the sewer debt is bettered, non-bettered, whether it is borne capital improvements. It's all broken down. This book is broken down to this spreadsheet. I didn't think you needed the book, but it is what it is. This is our debt.
It was definitely interesting reading. On your 3rd page here, you got then and now. When was then? What year was that?
Then was when they combined the offices. There used to be a separate treasurer collector's office about 10 years ago. There was a treasurer who was appointed and elected collector. Those offices were combined into a treasurer collector's office. It became an appointed position. I was appointed approximately 10 years ago. And from that, we've just grown. Actually,
You shrank,
we
but
shrank,
you grew,
but the
yeah.
office operation and what we do has grown,
Yeah,
but the
9
number of people
people
that we
to
have in the
6
office has
people.
gone down.
Excuse me, John.
Yes.
On the spreadsheet in the back, explain bettered and non-bettered, please.
Bettered project, if we have bettered debt, those revenues that we receive from betterments, when you see the betterments committed and committed interest that we mail out on the tax bills, you'll have a commitment amount on your tax bill. You are paying for that debt. Now, the non-bettered debt might be a pump station improvement to the treatment facility, something like that. There are no betterments to help pay for that debt. We pay for the debt, or the sewer department, or the user fees pay for that debt.
I was just curious, when I was reading these tax titles, and it says you had the reasons out on the outside, what tax was
Explain to me the difference in.
left unpaid, and it's just, Wareham Fire Department, $58,525.50.
That's correct. We collect that for them, and we give them their tax and interest, and
How much do we retain for doing so?
we get a fee. I believe we get 2% of their prior year tax levy, and that is sent to the town to cover all services provided by the town. So that's included in that.
When did the agreement come in?
Years ago. That was back when I was a tax assessor, or I was a director of assessment. It was 2%. And at one time, there was discussions whether they would raise it. I think one town administrator years back wanted to shift it to 4% without notifying the districts. And it was never discussed with them, and we had issues back then, but I think the districts were willing to hear what the town had to say at the time, but it hasn't gone anywhere since then.
I was just curious as to if that the town is taking the expense to collect the tax title, are we getting any extra back for legal fees and all of that?
Well, first of all, when you have a tax title property, if there are legal fees, the taxpayer is paying them.
Okay.
So we may pay something up front, we get it back. With the legal fees, unless we get a property that sells at auction or it's redeemed, we don't pay that. Yeah, so that is something we're not fronting for the districts.
Okay.
And we do get all the fees back. So when we mention those properties from back in the 80s, the interest was almost the same amount.
Yeah.
It might have been even higher than the actual principal amount. So that was all to us. That came to the town. Most of that came to the town.
Do you have any questions?
Not a question, but a comment on all of these departments over there. I'd be interested in seeing the square footage, and do we attempt to charge out for the electrical use and things of that nature, the space cost for these departments?
To the districts?
We just know this is what it costs to run this building over here. This department is using 3,000 square feet of it, and so much electricity, just so to know what the total department costs as part of the overhead of the.
Yeah, they were, at one time, years back, they attempted to do that. And then, I'm not sure what happened with that. That was,
It was a bad idea.
yeah, well, I wouldn't say that, but,
Either take over
It's probably
or-
swag.
Or we'll give it to someone else.
right.
That's exactly what, they would, they wouldn't budge on it, the district, we'll pay you this, you don't wanna do it, fine, we'll have somebody else do it. But they did attempt to do that, exactly, and I'd probably say in the last 10 or 15 years.
Yeah, there was, at one time, we were keeping track of everything that happened in the office. Matter of fact, we spent more time doing that than actual work.
Right.
Where we were keeping track of every conversation we had, if somebody called up, because we get, and I'll tell you how it works. There's certain periods of time that you spend 90% of your time dealing with sewer bills, because the sewer bills go out, the calls start coming in, you're collecting the money, you're depositing the money, you're doing everything for sewer, and then it dies. You may get a call once a day, twice a day, 3 times, but it's in various stages. So at one time, they were trying to break down the exact cost, where we wrote down on the phone 4 or 5 minutes discussing a sewer demand, you know, and we did keep track of that, and I think that's what helped them adjust the contributions paid by the administrative costs that they came up with those figures, those percentages years back.
To justify it, yeah.
Right. And I'm sure at that time they probably looked at the utilities and everything else, the overhead for these offices and the amount of time that they spent working on those sewer bills or district bills and all that. I'm sure somebody did the calculations back then to tie that into the overhead costs, because you're allowed to charge that too.
I was thinking also for space planning and space needs and things of that nature.
Yeah, there's a lot, matter of fact, it's going on right now. When I left the town hall this morning, they were cleaning up offices. We had somebody working in we have several rooms, closets, we're trying to organize all the payroll in one closet and get everything organized. We had a volunteer over there working on it today and cleaning up, and they're moving a new assistant town accountant in, so they're cleaning up the accounts office to make more space. So they are working on it. There are offices moving around from location to location. That's happening right now. So I think we're getting a lot better organized.
I noticed you guys, you both came up with the same bottom number on salaries, but there's a difference in the middle?
Yeah, the bottom line, I think it was, I had a clerk that was 13,707 on one page.
Yeah.
And I had estimated it at 15,000. There was one clerk that when they estimated, I think I hired a new clerk recently, and they calculated it off the old clerk, because this was a while ago.
Okay,
So that's the $36,000 employee you see.
all right.
If you notice, it's different on the other page.
That's what I was wondering, yeah.
So all I did was put it back into when I saw this sheet, I put it back into the one that I had asked for 15,000 and it reduced her to 14,000.
All right. Anyone else? Any additional information?
No, I'm good.
You're good?
Yep.
Guess we're way too quiet.
Well,
John knocked him down.
there's never any questions for him, but it's.
Because I talk too much? Is that what you're
No.
saying?
Oh, you bring the
won't,
money in.
yeah.
No, because you're probably, not probably, you are one of the most efficient people in this town.
I appreciate it.
Department.
Thank you.
There's
It's
no
not,
better way to do it. The
I'll tell you what, it's not me, because the staff that I have,
Exactly.
we had problems years ago,
Yeah.
and if I didn't have the people I have in that office, there would have been problems all around.
Spoken like a good manager.
So surround
You know, I
yourself
just,
with great
I
people.
bring back my extra envelopes. I hope, do they recycle them?
We use those for when we remail something, those
Yeah.
envelopes that people bring back, we send those out with the new mailings. So we have to, sometimes they come back with the wrong addresses, and we remail them, and we use those.
Oh, bet you thought they got thrown away, huh?
I always say, recycle this, I wanna see where it goes.
No, as always, your audit, your department, the audit always flies through with a cup. Aces, your aces all the time in your department.
Now, there's still improvements to be made. There's a lot of changes on that audit that we're gonna be changing and following through on. We've already started on that. We meet, the financial team meets twice a month, and we go over these, and we have an agenda, and we follow up. We meet with the auditors. Yesterday, we met with the Plymouth County Treasurer, working on something else. We've worked on, last meeting we had, we went over the entire audit once again to see where we stood. So some things have already been wiped off the list, others will take a bit more time. There are some things that we're not sure. I contacted the auditors over one item, that they're trying to find somebody who actually doesn't have that recommendation in their audit,
Really.
because they can't follow it, so.
Well, as I said, you guys are doing a good job over there.
We're working on it.
And I think, combining the offices, it was a great idea from the selectmen and for everybody. It's just, somebody's accountable now. That's a good thing.
Good.
Are you gonna be able to find a payroll processing service that can do the?
We have one. That's actually, they are required to provide us with that service. They have been unable to. And that is, just so you know, you're referring to the
Vacation,
compensated
sick
absences?
day,
Yes.
Yeah, the compensated absences is what I was referring to when I said I was asking the auditors if they could provide us with the software company that is able to provide that. Because we have contracts, these different agreements that we have with different unions. We can do it if everybody had the same Right, same compensated absences on same dates. But within unions, you might have a anniversary date of July 1st, January 1st, or the date you were hired. Within some of those unions, they have buyback provisions, where at the end of it, we pay you for X number of dollars for whatever days you haven't used, but the rest goes back into additional time to put back onto the calendar, back onto your schedule in some other form. We tried to do that. We worked with the company that we currently have, and the numbers weren't coming out. The manual spreadsheets were fine, and that's our problem. And then my assistant, years ago, when this appeared, she decided to do the same thing in Excel, which does work, but it's not tied into the payroll system. So we have an electronic version that does not tie in with the payroll system, and we have a manual version that is correct. But you'll still, until you have the payroll system that does what they're looking for, we're gonna get written up because it's not tied into the electronic payroll
So
system.
we're tracking it in at least two formats.
It
but
looks like
doesn't-
you're not doing it at all. When they say we do not have an automated compensating absence program, we don't. But we have a manual program that we've been using for years. And if there's a problem, the employee will talk with the individual that maintains that, and they'll come up with a solution, you know, whether you took a day or you didn't take a day. That's not the problem. They want it to be automated, and they want to say at the end, when you push this button, it's going to say, for the reports, for their audit, we have $100,000 in uncompensated time on the books. It doesn't do that. You have to manually calculate it to do that.
Does anybody have a program?
I went to the
That's what
trade
he
show,
asked.
yeah, I went to the trade show this fall, and our auditors were there. And I did find two companies that said they had it, but they want to sell us all of this software, not just the human resource
What else do they?
module. And that wouldn't tie into our payroll system.
Do
So
they
I
have a
think-
payroll system?
Yes,
Okay, so that's. they're
software. They want us to do it, though.
They
See,
bundle it.
we ship it out. Right now, it goes
Yeah, they
to
want
this
you to
company.
internally do it.
They want to do it.
Right.
No, they want to sell us
No, they
the
want to sell us the
software so we
program,
can
and
do it
then we will have to
ourselves.
maintain the
Yes.
yeah.
So I'll hire another couple people to do that, so. it
Did you
should be
pay
fine.
well? Yeah.
What's that?
I'll hire another couple people to do that, so that should be fine.
And that actually,
Over
that
our dead body?
that
Since you're so flush, right?
the $42,000 figure for that,
Yeah.
for the contract, that includes the schools as well.
Right.
So that's all together. That's not just the town side.
I guess from an audit viewpoint, then we can encourage the auditors to write.
Well,
at least-
I can tell you this, over the past few years, there's been more serious concerns than that.
Yeah, no, it's.
Cash was big, and cash is now resolved, and you didn't see that as a management finding or
Right,
a
no,
material
it's-
weakness.
No, the accountant and the collector's office are now balancing
The
out.
treasurers, and there's a lot of offices. Matter of fact, the town accountant's sick today, or she's out today. And if you had her in here, she can give you a list of the things that she now reconciles, and she has a schedule that she maintains, so.
I think I gave you guys that one of the monthly sheets or something.
You did,
like that.
yes.
When we were going over the audit, yeah.
Don't test us on it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anything else?
Take a bow.
Thank you, John.
All set, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
It's about this 15 cents.
Jeff.
All right.
Very good. Thank you.
Almost there.
Wow. Moving right along.
I certainly would hire him to
All right.
shovel my lawn. With my taxes.
The service.
Hello. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Right there.
Next up, we have the assessor's office. The tab's falling off.
Head assessor and newest resident.
That's right, yeah. My name is Jackie Nichols. You haven't seen me before in this particular venue.
Thanks. Got my hand
If you would like to.
Yeah,
you can
absolutely.
just give me
Where is
some.
Absolutely.
I'll give one
Yeah,
to
it's
Tom.
near the front.
I got it.
Near the front?
I got it.
I'm here.
Dorothy Nichols.
Jackie, was it Jackie?
Yeah, Jackie.
Hi, Jackie.
Yeah, I know it's spelled a little weird. First of all, I apologize in advance,
We don't take apologies
but
here.
you'll just see. I'm a little loopy on medication. My staff likes it, but.
All right, so if you want to just go over some of the items and see if we have any questions for you.
My understanding is that you all have a sheet that has last year's budget and then this year's request.
Yes.
You'll notice that there's mostly some reorganization of the funds as opposed to changes in the amounts. There's overall less than a 1% increase. The salaries themselves are determined by contract, with the exception of the assistant assessor data collector position, which is due to be filled in March. We have just received all of the applications for it, and we'll start interviewing probably next week or the week after. For budgeting purposes, I budgeted that salary in the midpoint of the union. The operating expenses, the notes that I've given you basically break down what is included in each category. We don't have a whole lot of categories. Most of our budget is in salaries. Our other assessing expenses are just under $25,000 a year, which, considering the important job that our staff does, I think is reasonable. We do have certain mandated things that we have to do, which is sending out certain forms every year, required by the Commonwealth, and providing certain services to the public, which we do. For repairs and maintenance, we basically have to keep our machines running, and our copy machines, our printers, and so forth. Some of our equipment is older and is now taking more to keep going. As we get older, we require a little bit more maintenance. The professional services category, you'll notice that there's a sharp decrease from last year, and that's because of the reorganization of the department. Basically, we are embarking on a multi-year plan to reorganize the department to maintain the high level of services that we have always provided the town, but also try to align ourselves to use less outside vendor services, and that requires a reorganization of the department. So we are adding back into the mix the assistant assessor data collector, which they used to have, but haven't had for the past few years. Recently, our office manager, senior clerk, Barbara Lefevre, retired after a very long and distinguished career here. And we are kind of shifting some of her responsibilities within the department. So you'll see that that position is not being refilled as it was. We are doing something a little bit different with it. So overall, we have a slight increase to the salaries matrix, but it's not, it's more of a redistricting. The salaries, most of the salaries increases because of the budget, the contracts that were signed. If I start babbling, just, wave and I'll stop. Office supplies have been under budgeted, and we have actually end up spending more money trying to replace things or find money to do things that we have to do that we're not budgeted properly for, as far as sending out forms and stuff like that. I mean, we have to do it. So in the past couple of years, I found that they weren't budgeting enough, and then they were, stealing from other areas or having to go back to Derek or to anybody else to try to find money to fulfill these requirements. And it is imperative that we gather as much information from the taxpayers as possible in order to have the information we need to assess properties fairly, personal property fairly, and so forth. So, we really need to be on top of this. Plus, with the exemptions and the veterans exemptions and such, we want to offer the highest level of service to the taxpayer, and that requires us having certain forms and doing mailings and so forth. The fuel and mileage, basically, I've kind of decreased that, but kind of moved some of that back into education, dues, memberships, conferences, which was not budgeted before, and I don't really understand why, because you have to maintain your education. I hold an MAA designation. It's required for my position. And we have new board members who I want to be able to give them the education that's going to help them in their position. I don't understand why it wasn't budgeted for before. It should have been, and has to be done. Overall, like I said, there's less than a 1% increase, and when you look at the contracted increase in the salaries, I think that speaks pretty well to what we're doing.
You got the prize so far for the lowest.
Oh, well, that's good.
Now what are we gonna cut?
Put your hand right.
Yeah.
Does anybody have any questions for me, or?
On the deed services,
Mm.
all three items, I hate, don't want to pick, but you're getting copies of the deeds from the county registry.
That's correct.
All right, and they're keeping all theirs electronically also. Sorry, thank you. The Plymouth County Registry of Deeds maintains an electronic file of all the deeds that go through. Is that something that could be transferred to the various towns? Do any towns get them electronically rather than keeping them as paper deeds?
Interesting you should bring that up, because I've actually been looking into that. There are some towns who get theirs electronically, where I used to live, but it was a very, very small town. I mean, we used to get 2 or 3 a month. We get upwards of 100. We have started talking about, if we got it electronically, then do we print them all out?
No.
You know what I'm saying? Or do we have somebody print one out every time somebody wants to look at something? There's a lot to be looked at there, and it's not something that we can change overnight. People have come to expect the assessor's office to have the deeds at the ready. And we also need to read and analyze every single deed that comes through, and we do. For sales, for any transfer, it gets read, analyzed, qualified, and then put in our vault, as well as the information entered into our CAMA system. So we use the deeds, we have our hands on the deeds a lot. So I understand where you're coming from with this, and I will look into it more. As I said, I started looking into it. What is the best, most efficient, least costly way to get our deeds and still be able to use them the way that we need to? The things don't change overnight. And there are a lot of things that need to be done in this office, and as I tell Derek, it's a multi-year plan. So we look at all of these things, but that is an excellent point and something that I am interested in looking into.
Very good. Thank you.
And my vision of the multi-year plan is getting multiple things done in a year. So,
I'm gonna see if I understand this right, David. You're talking about having these things available electronically. It's like if there was a workstation that somebody can pull up electronically, and then if they need a paper copy, they can make a copy of it?
I'm talking about for all the activities that the assessor's office uses the deeds for. And obviously, Jackie's looking at that, so that she doesn't have to print out paper deeds and file paper deeds. And if a resident comes in or someone needs to look at it, there's no reason why they couldn't look at it electronically.
You said, yeah.
Yeah,
Just
well,
as
that's
you-
what I
they-
was thinking, is like she's talking wear and tear
Can't
on
print it.
these. Is it possible to make us, a hard copy that's like a file copy and is only brought out when you absolutely need the original? And then for everyday access of people handling them and using them and reviewing them, if they were listed in an electronic version for everyday use.
Well, the other thing is that with a password, anybody can look at deeds at the Plymouth Registry of Deeds.
But you can't print them out.
But you can't, well, you can if you pay for it, but.
Well, right,
yes.
exactly.
But again, if someone wants a printed copy, if I go in and say I want a printed copy of my deed, I would expect that perhaps you'd charge 10 cents or 20 cents a page and print it out for them.
you would see
Take a picture
the,
of the damn thing.
you
You
would
can do
see
that.
the outrage that the offices get hit with when you ask somebody to pay for a copy. I mean, true outrage. It's pretty interesting. Yeah,
Then send them to the Plymouth County
Yeah.
Deeds and they can get it there, or give them the
Again,
website.
now we're talking about changing the scope of services that we provide.
No.
And does that need to be done at some point?
Maybe.
You know,
And I think you're looking at it, and that my question was really, are you considering it? And the answer was yes, and I appreciate that. I'm not telling you how to do your business.
No, I understand.
But you are looking at it, thank you.
Yes, that'd be good.
Go ahead, Jeff.
What will the impact of the overall assessment, the 3-year program that we have, the revaluation, have on the department? Because there's a blank thing here, and we're going to start it, right? This is catching up with our mandate to have everything reassessed every.
Well-
right, when you look at the reval, I'm sorry, any of the monies that have been encumbered are a separate article, so you wouldn't put that in the budget. So you wouldn't budget for reval expenses.
So
'cause
there's
we've
no, I mean, it would seem to me that you're going to get inundated with new data.
The measure, I think you're talking about the measure and list project that
Yes.
we're going to embark on relatively
Right.
soon. That's going to be really interesting. However, as Derek said, the personnel and the monies for that, for the most part, are set aside in that separate article. What we're going to see is, as far as affecting the department, is my time, some of my time will be going towards that project. The new assistant's time will be going towards supervising that project. our equipment and our computers, which are aging, will be used for that project. And I anticipate that's where we're going to see an impact because of the higher level of use over the next few years. But as far as the monies for that project, that is in a separate article and not included.
Yeah, no, the monies I see, I mean, just to look at the activity and then thinking about, you know, where are people gonna go when they find out they've been reassessed? They're gonna go to you, I would assume, wanting to see stuff and so forth, so.
They
level
do
of
that,
activity
they do
like
that daily. That's, you know, and we've recently been dealing with that on a larger scale because we just ended the reval from last year.
Triennial, yeah.
The triennial, yeah. So we do handle that on a daily basis, and that's my job, so.
And I think Jackie's trying to be kind as being one of the new department heads and not saying that she really wants that other position that we didn't fund, and it would help out a lot for the department, but.
You mean
like-
an office manager again?
Right.
We're now trying to do the work that was done with 4 people, which historically was done with 4 people in the main office, clerking, plus an assistant, plus a director. We are now trying, that's 5 people we are doing with three at the moment.
And
4, sorry, 4.
I know personally, I've had to go and get Chan titles and things. You guys have always been right there, Johnny on the spot. I don't know how you're gonna do it now. with
Well,
Staffing, but
it's yes, very challenging. And the workload doesn't get any lighter when we have less people.
No, something's you gotta stop doing.
Something, you know,
Something has to stop, that's the problem. People wrestle with that. And the town people may have to wrestle
you know,
with that
so
to pay
usually,
for
you know, they
copies,
had
period.
6 people in that department, now we're down to 4.
Yeah.
But we're trying to do the best we can with what we have. But Derek would have loved to have had a photograph of the look on my face when he told me that we were gonna have to.
How does she know I don't have a photograph?
She is irate as a taxpayer?
Yeah, it's interesting. She might have to run from both sides of the desk
Yeah.
to yell at herself.
Just yell
and
at
answer the
yourself, yeah.
questions.
Yeah.
Can I, as a taxpayer, get on and see my deed? I guess I can from Plymouth. Can I just print it on my own printer?
you pay for it.
You can, you have to register in order to print it.
Okay, but you know, it's almost like, it's too bad we can't have the same thing, just take the electronic record and have that, and then if they want it, they can print it out. I guess it's what Bonnie was kind of saying, you can look at it.
Well,
and
when
Yeah.
we have a lot of people in town that come in and rely on the assessor's office for all of that stuff.
Yeah, no, I know, I mean, I'm trying to figure out how to reduce the burden, let the user do more of their own work themselves rather than have to.
Well, then we'd need more computers and new screens and, you know, updated stuff, you know, so forth.
Oh, let's
So,
go back to microfiche.
Yeah.
On a reel?
As it is, one of the things that is in my budget is they were trying to cut corners by how they were putting the deeds together, because we used to bind them in those big, huge books, and they haven't had the money to do that for a few years, so they were using these little cardboard things. Well, they're all falling apart. So they spent money to try to save money, which now we have to redo. So sometimes you have to,
Like a bullet.
yeah.
Well, anything electronic, I mean, you know, again, even spending money on a computer, if you can save labor.
Well, then you'd also have to talk to Matt because of the huge amount of server space that would be taken care of. One of the things that I was looking into for the future was utilizing our camera software more than we are right now. and that would be putting associated documents right into the system. But again, I have to sit down and talk to Matt and talk about, what kind of server space do we have? And although it would be more efficient and a better use of our software that we've already paid for, how is that going to affect him? I can't just go and make changes in my office without, seeing how going forward is going to affect everybody else. I'd like to have 3 or 4 pictures of every waterfront property in my system, from all angles. But pictures take up a lot of space. How much, when you do that on, all of these things have to be looked at down the road.
Interesting. Any other questions?
Don't
Tom,
at me,
you
it's
look
your chance
puzzled.
to complain.
I complain to you.
What will be the impact of this measuring we're gonna do? Have we got any sense of?
In other words, why are we doing this, or?
Well, we have to do it, I
Well,
understand. But,
besides
I mean,
the
if
fact
we
that
take- have we gone out and said, okay, I'm taking a sample of 2% of these things and see what it means to the evaluation or with the information that we have and are doing the assessment on? So to get
Honestly,
an idea of
I'm
what
just-
changes are gonna happen.
I'm just going to go by my past experience in other communities where I've worked and performed full measure-in lists. And I expect that we are going to discover a fair amount of growth that wasn't permitted. I expect we're going to discover,
But she's being really nice about that.
I try to be nice when I can.
You are nice.
I also expect to
You've
find.
never told her you're cutting a position.
There was a desk in between us. It was probably a good thing. I also expect to discover some condition and quality issues that we are not seeing. So I expect some things to go up. I expect some things to go down. We are also doing a lot to, again, try to fine-tune our database. Some of the coding and the way that we've done things in the past is very old, and I'm going to try to update that as well, so that we have, at the end of the 3-year process, a much more reliable database of properties which to use to reval. Sampling any 2% probably wouldn't give me the sense that I really need when we're talking about
You get a good
14,000.
sample, man. You'd be amazed how close you'll come.
Well, we have 14,000 properties of all different types. Wareham is unique in the
Where was Dominic?
complexity,
She said it. Unique.
complexity and diversity of
This
its
is my
property stock.
Yeah.
So it's going to be very interesting to see.
What's the FEMA floodplain situation?
Ooh.
Well, as we all know, most of Wareham is crosshatched in blue. And as far as if you're asking from a valuation standpoint, how is it affecting us? The market continues to tell me that. I don't have any, let's see, how do I explain this nicely? I don't have any control over what the impact is going to be. I can only record it and report it after it's happened. And what's going to happen is, unless they relook at everything, which I know some towns are trying to get them to do, as we go forward and the sales take place in the market, the impact is going to be felt there, and then therefore in the values of the town. But a lot of people, come to me and say, well, my property's flood map location has changed. You need to make an adjustment. Well, I can't do that. I need to wait and see how the market tells me it's going to be adjusted. Again, in my previous experience with waterfront communities, especially high-end ones, a lot of people may be self-insured. And if they're trading on that level, will we see some impact? I'm not sure. But I do know we have a lot of mid-level waterfronts, which I think it probably will make an impact. But again, I have to wait and see that impact happen. Most recently, we did see an uptick in the sales of waterfront properties and their prices. That's what we gained out of the last revow. Did that answer your question?
No.
Just tell me to shut up, you know? 'Cause
No, it's fine, but just, what's your bet in which way the overall evaluation is?
I'm an appraiser. Betting is not in my.
Ah, good answer. good
Same line as the Super Bowl.
When the pizza comes, we can have another discussion about, it'd probably be fairly dynamic for a number of years. My bet it would go up as people people couldn't afford their properties anymore. They sell, the next person comes in fully knowledgeable that they're gonna have to put it on stilts and different things like that, and then the value goes up. But, literally. What? Oh, yeah, yeah. I don't know, I mean, the Jersey coast is probably a good example of what happens.
My mother lived in Situate.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Oh, geez.
Lost the house twice. So.
It's interesting, everybody's version of affordability. If you look, there's, in Jamestown, Rhode Island, the houses on the water are several $1 million. However, the New Yorkers and Connecticut waterfront people come up and say, what a bargain.
What a deal.
Yeah,
No, I mean, yeah, no, it's all
so,
relative.
yeah.
But I think
When I used to work, there's a town in southern Connecticut, who shall remain nameless, but they used to have the tear down of the week. And those tear downs were $1 million plus. So they'd buy it and then they would tear it down. They had of the week, picture before,
Greenwich,
after,
Darien,
in
where
somewhere down there, yes.
well, they're not making any more waterfront properties, so
That's correct.
even if you gotta spend more money to build something on it.
After a couple of their storms, these storms are maybe
Well,
new waterfront property.
That's why I said what happened in New Jersey ought to be a prognosticator of how it might go, because, I mean, having grown up there, some of those communities were just small cottages that all jammed together. And of course, they're gone, but been replaced by people who came in, recognized that this was their opportunity, bought it, and can afford to put something up.
Well, if you really want to hear my opinion on FEMA, it seems to me that there should have been a lot more forethought put into when they redid everybody's. Did they look forward to see what they were doing and what it was gonna?
Why would you want to do that?
Well, that's my opinion.
That's okay. Enough opinions. Move on.
Okay, any other questions? For those at home, I just want to say that we understand what this reorganization is all about. You talked about it at the beginning of some of our budget discussions, trying to make government work as efficiently as we can. But this is what we are faced with when it comes to the actual numbers. Is an assistant collector needed? Obviously it is. And doing without your office manager, it's what we're faced with. I'm hoping this works out, but these are just more of the things that we've had to do to meet our budgets.
And I'm hoping that we don't have to start cutting services that we've always given, because my staff is known in the community for giving excellent customer service. It's what they do. But we can only do so much.
The townspeople have to be willing to pay for that excellent service, and if they're not willing to come to town meeting and vote on things, they better not say anything.
And that's getting to the point. This is what we're faced with, this is what we're voting for. So, that's it.
If you can make a case for an investment that's gonna pay back in terms of operating costs in a 2 to 3 year period, we ought to hear about it.
Oh,
We ought to be looking at that sort of stuff.
John did that with the various equipment many times.
That's what I'm,
Many times and nothing's been done, we were able to do though, Tom. I mean,
All right, well, since you brought it up, one of the things that we are going to be required to do by the state, which will also pay us back dividends, is investing in our GIS and a GIS department. That is huge.
Okay,
It-
for the folks at home who have no idea what GIS is, can you give me that explanation?
GIS, very plainly, is called Geographic Information Systems, and what it basically is a mapping system, an electronic mapping system for those who like electronic things, that allows us to properly map things, value things. It is becoming a requirement for the Commonwealth, for the DOR, for us to have, because it is such an important tool. And our maps have been, well, the first day, when I first started here, back in June, and I ran into one of the head people at the DOR, their first comment was, "Oh, their maps are terrible." So they know, and we know, that our mapping system is not good. It's ancient, and it needs to be done. Right now, we're working with Mass GIS to get an initial GIS database going. But if we had a comprehensive GIS program that could be used by the building department, that could be used by my department, the harbor master, and these exist. As a matter of fact, Mattapoisett just invoked one called People GIS. It can be used for a lot of different things that would allow us to provide services to the taxpayers, as well as make our jobs easier all around. Municipal maintenance, sewer, building, assessors.
Is this that program, I think we've, the municipal maintenance talked about this a few years ago. Is that where it shows like the street layouts and all the houses, and then it shows where all your water lines
You
are,
can
your
have-
sewer
you can-
lines?
Exactly,
You
you
have like
can have
different layers?
layers,
Yes.
perfect, that's a perfect terminology for it. You have your parcel layers, your sewer layers, your zoning layers, your FEMA layers you can even put on there.
how much are these systems?
Well, it depends on who's going to use them. And there are a couple things that have to be taken into consideration, and that is who's going to use them. And if, let's say, it's the building department planning and the CAMA for the assessors, you know, you buy different modules of different things. But it's something that has to be looked at on a cooperative basis with a lot of different people. And that's, you know, that's a tough thing. But it's also not the least expensive thing we've ever done. But if you're talking about investing now into something that's going to pay us dividends in the future, I believe that is one thing that would. And that would encompass, you know, my department and Matt's department. And
do you have an idea of what Mattapoisett spent on their?
I don't know off the top of my head. And People GIS is just one of the programs. It's just one that I have seen that I was very impressed with.
I heard it talked about with municipal maintenance a few years ago about just road maintenance, because it gives you an idea, and he can track which roads they've just done, how old the roads have been resurfaced, things like that. It has a lot of uses.
You can do that. I can do valuation using the mapping system, which one of the reasons that I was hired was to get us going back to doing a lot of things in-house without vendors. Now, with 54 miles of coastline, you can imagine you know, what a Herculean task it is to value these properties fairly and equitably. Having a proper GIS would help me tremendously to achieve that without having 9 people in the field doing an on-site review of every single property during a reval year, which is what we had last year. So, if you're asking me if there's one thing, that would be my thing. Are you
That's her
kicking
wish
me?
list.
No, I think you want to add a drone too, just listening to you. I have visions of this thing taking pictures of everything.
Sounds like a CAT scan for the town.
Yeah, there you
Yeah, that's a good analogy.
It is, I've heard all kinds of things.
No, you can,
with
you
it.
can use it for valuation, but you can also use it, let's say you have your council on aging, and your council on aging has a list of vulnerable people that should be contacted in a storm.
Yeah.
You can use the GIS for that.
Wow.
You can use GIS to locate where all the dogs and dog licenses are. I mean, it's just unbelievable what can be done these days. So,
Very interesting.
I hope whatever is
Thank you.
being done in the sewer department is expandable or compatible with whatever the rest of the town is going to be using.
well, I think if you were to get a program such as this, they can bring other things into it. So again, it's something that needs a lot more research and the cooperation of a lot of different departments. So.
It's the layered approach, which
And
pretty
a
neat if you
dedicated
get it.
staff to it.
What?
You'll
And-
need at
and,
least
yeah,
2
we need
people
a
to
GIS
manage.
department.
But,
Yeah.
but it's, I mean, looking at various towns that have it already, and now I recognize what I was looking at, layering it in, where you
Yep.
just press, I want to look at this, this, and this, and they're all there.
Barnstable has
didn't
it,
have the color
Sandwich.
The fact that we didn't have it when I got here was kind of,
What's
I was
that?
very surprised, you know,
Yeah.
with the size of the town and the
Yeah.
complexity,
Yeah,
you
okay.
know.
I would love to have that. It'd be much better. It'd be inspectional services for investors coming in. Love to have it.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, so. Now we can,
You're not allowed to talk from now on unless you walk up to that mic.
Why don't we
I've
get
been
him a
told
mic
that.
over there?
Just so you know, over a year ago, SERP have basically launched a full GIS system for all 28 communities that they're involved with. And the layering process, you can sit there and layer what the land is, what type of land it is, what's developable, not developable. You can figure out where your growth is, et cetera. They put all the statistics in. It's up to the towns to feed them information. The system is there. Anybody, not just the town employees, anyone can go into the SERP site and go in to that system and look and play with it. It's available. It's been available for well over a year.
like that, right? So I can look at the topography.
You can do whatever you want. Absolutely. I believe Guy was doing the sewer lines with GIS. Matt has a program. They've had it for a while. I don't think he has the one that he wants exactly, but we have the equipment, and we have the student from Bridgewater State who is in the geography program there that's been working with the town. They're working with planning. He started with Guy Water Pollution Control Facility. We've got another intern in the same program, but with Bristol Community College coming in, and hopefully either Matt, who works with our Matt, is going to be another semester, or we'll get another student from Bridgewater State. So this is already happening. This has been 4 or 5 years ago. We knew what this was. It's just we didn't have the money for it and didn't have the bodies for it more than anything else. Yeah, one ITS guy trying to run the whole town doesn't work.
Right now, if I need a neighborhood map, I may have to wait 3 weeks to get one. That's unacceptable. Well, don't get me going on Zillow.
Again, you can probably go to you may want to check the SERP site to see what's available for you.
Tell Google I even existed.
I wouldn't trust
We're
Google
gonna put
Maps.
a little camera in
That
your
still
car
says
and
I
you
have
can
a
just
pool in my
drive around.
backyard. I don't. It's not like I
There's
do.
that.
All right then.
Jackie, thank you very much.
Thank you, Jackie.
You're
Very
welcome.
informative.
I'm in here a little earlier. Okay. Just going through the accounting on the personnel line, you'll see the major change is the moving the assistant town accountant position to a full-time position. That's in line with what the DOR recommends and what our audit has stated as well. Get some full-time help in there. We have, we've posted for that position. We have all the, everybody that's, it's closed now, so we have the persons in there, and there'll be a review committee of the applicants, which will then forward their recommendation to me. So we should have that probably within the next couple of weeks, give or take, any sort of snowstorms. Repair and maintenance, that's, we're actually budgeting for that this year. The other professional services, we are planning on needing additional audits for the GASBs. I believe it's GASB, the new updates of the 65 and such. Most likely, they haven't required it yet, but, you know, I'm going to guess they're most likely going to require that, and some of our audits run between $5,000 and $10,000. Purchase services and the office supplies, and then the dues and memberships. Like many, if you see, there's a bit of a theme here. One of the things that was cut right away from most of the budgets many years ago was the education. And we can hire people with all the knowledge in the world when they come in, but if we're not allowing them to keep up with their education, we're not allowing to grow. Yeah. So, their budget is fairly simple. There's the town accountant, the part-time assistant, and then the department assistant. Department assistant mainly does a lot of the billings and such. By having the part-time assistant in there and taking some of the grunt work, if you will, away from the town accountant, it won't change the fact that that Wareham's town accountant is a working position. It's not really it is a managerial position, but they're ones that are actually putting numbers in and such. But this will allow us to start looking at more of our practices, develop the policies and procedures, and you know, fraud and risk assessments and such. So.
Do you have any questions?
How big an office does this people have? This
You-
group have?
Size-wise?
Yeah.
I would say they roughly have the same size as if you've been in the selectman's office, roughly about that size.
In all file cabinets and all this other,
Yeah, we've just gone through, and like we said, we've had the volunteer do a lot of cleaning out of that
never buy
department.
another file
Yeah,
cabinet.
yeah.
Jesus.
One of the things we need to look at is creating an off-site storage facility, because there's certain documents that we can't destroy, and we just don't have the funds to put them all in electronically. We really don't. Believe it, you know, yeah, I could probably hire a bunch of kids on February break to run material through a scanner. But is it going to be properly cataloged? Are you ever going to find it again?
Can't search it and all
Right.
that stuff, that's the problem with the
Right.
scans.
And that's the main thing. If we're gonna go through in the true scanning, you want a catalog, be able to search through there and have it be able to find it. Otherwise, it's the same as just shoving it all, a bunch of papers into a room, you know?
However, if we go back a few
Judy
years,
was
we hired
Judy
a couple of young kids that came in to do some research work for us. And one just happens to be running our town right now.
I know.
So you can
Called you a young
you could
kid,
get
oh my
some-
goodness.
You could get some pretty good finds out there.
Yep. I believe in interns. I'm a product of it, so.
What happens?
I might have had some suggestions for that kid when he came back in a few years ago.
I mean, I think there is software basically that would allow you to read it and transcribe it into
Right.
stuff like that. I don't know how much it costs. But the point is, just copying it doesn't do you any good.
No.
You gotta be
Right.
able to use it and find it.
But you have certain documentation that even, especially in the accounting office, that by law is mandatory, that you have to have a hard copy
Have to
of
have a
it.
paper copy?
Yeah,
Yeah.
for a certain period of time, you have to do that. So even if you transfer it into an electronic form, you still have to maintain certain,
Some of them are a period of 7 years, then you are
Yes.
allowed to petition to destroy them.
yeah.
So, that's the, hey,
There's one other thing I just want to throw out to you too, is these volunteer kids. You got these kids that are on the honor society, they have to do so much community service. These kids are smart kids in the high school, real smart kids, and they're looking for places to sharpen their, to help out and sharpen their skills and put their time in. You know, it's just somewhere to look.
So again, this is part of your restructuring plan, to get the personnel to really do the job, and is that 3 people enough to get the job done?
You know, I think we can accomplish it. It's, you know, you're talking about 3 people for accounting for a $60 million budget. It is still a lot, but it's what we're going to be able to work with. You know, and I think we can still get the job done and implement the changes that need to be done. You can see what the town accountant with the finance director have been able to do so far, and the jumps between 2010 to now have been,
Yeah. I wish Dominic was here. Maybe Tom, Tom's gone that way. I'm trying to think of what we were even looking at a couple years ago for the salary for the town accountant. I remember when it came out, it was like people were just,
It was very low.
yeah, but then there was a really high number out there that people were flabbergasted over, and
it
the
was
idea.
well over 90,000.
Yes, it was.
It was originally
It
60,
was.
60 to then it went
Right.
to 90.
Yeah.
And the thought was that if you have good quality people doing the job,
That didn't work.
Is that a
What-
CPA level?
It was, and the person even had a law degree on
Yes.
there, and they, yeah, by, on paper, it was wonderful, and, we're lucky enough to have within our contracts a 6-month clause that during the first 6 months, for whatever reason, you can sever ties, and we needed to utilize that.
Because the
In that
many-
case,
So many experts don't have the municipal finance.
Municipal finance is a bit of a different animal, and again, it's a working position.
right.
So if you're used to managing a staff of 6 and getting things done, and you're coming into here, it's not gonna work,
you
yeah.
gotta do it yourself, yeah.
Yeah, a little bit
So,
different. Any questions?
So we're really looking at 3 staff, not 6.
yes, does it say,
3.
yeah,
That's a very.
3 full-time.
Yep.
And I'm looking at 6 here.
no, you're looking at a total of 3. 1, 2, 3.
And then written in the number 6.
I don't see 6.
You got on the right page, town accountant?
Town accountant?
Yeah, that's all I have.
I only have 3.
3, and then down here I have 6.
No, that's the total. That's where you draw a line underneath the 3.
So, okay, so 3, and then the single ones.
All right. Bless you.
Listen. I'm just looking at what the number is. I want people to understand that, you know, when they hear about cutting, and this is quite an increase because you're putting a full-time person in there. What sort of productivity we're gonna get out of that, and the reason for that kind of an increase. I want the people at home to understand what that means. Do you guys have any questions? No? We're good? Anything else on that, Derek?
No, that's, you know, it's a pretty, for how important it is, it's a pretty basic budget.
Yeah.
I mean, you're gonna get accounting, but you're probably not gonna get a lot of analysis and the stuff that you would need if you wanna change things and
Right.
dig into them. I mean, is it fair to say?
Yeah, and I look, we have we have our current accounting system. People have asked me, well, can you do the 20-year analysis? I say, well, you can pull the numbers out of the old books. And they say, wait a minute, you don't have that at your fingertips. I say,
No, okay, that's my point, is,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you don't get a guidance system. It basically just keeps track of what you
Right.
did.
yeah, a lot of times, you know, when we're doing these things, we're performing the operations, and this accounting department, the finance department has been able to make strides to fix items, but most of the time, you're at the status quo, so we're not creating anything. I I look at envy at some of the other towns that have the budget departments and what they can put
That's-
together and such.
Yeah, that's my point, is the
Yeah.
people in town need to understand that. That's what you're giving up.
Yes.
It's
Yep.
the ability, when you look at other towns, it's because they have more
Dedicated
analysis
staff.
to try to look
Yep.
at proactive rather than just reactive. Goes back to
Yep.
an earlier discussion.
Yep. And that's, I have true budget envy, as I've said.
All right.
Okay, so that's the end of accounting.
But we can bring Matt in
We're
and
gonna
start
bring
with
Matt
him.
up,
They said
yeah.
the pizzas aren't quite ready yet, so
Okay.
if Matt doesn't mind. Good. Good news, Jackie volunteered you to add GIS completely for the town.
That was really nice of her.
He promised, promised a GIS system tomorrow morning. You're ready for that.
All right, this is Matt, and he's IT and communications. You've got two tabs, actually, two separate budgets, information management technologies, and then our communications section. Okay? Take it away, Matt.
Good afternoon. I just wanted to go over the two budgets here with, technology and communications. Which one would you like to go over first?
IT first.
IT?
That's where all the
Okay.
big bucks are.
All right. The IT department, one of the things that we're actually looking at adding, I shouldn't say adding, is replacing, is one of the vacant technology support technicians. It's been vacant going on 6 years now. Right now, the IT department currently, supports about 200 employees. So right now, we've got two full-time staff. One spends most of his time at the police department, and the other one, and myself, deals with most of the other departments. So we're looking at, a ratio of 1 to every 100 employees, that we're supporting. We've got 27 locations around town with equipment in it. We've got 57 servers that the two of us are supporting, over 200 computers. Right now, we're running over 100 different applications, between the two of us, between finance, accounting, payroll, tax billing collections, to, police records and dispatch, to, plant operations at the sewer department. So it's really a full load for two staff employees to try to maintain. And that doesn't even account all the phone systems, the internet access, emergency call boxes, cell phones, radios, antennas that we have to install, all the currently WCTV, all the TV channels go through the town, to the IT department. Video surveillance, all that stuff, is stuff that's we're responsible for. We got a number of projects that we're working on. Some of the upcoming projects that we're looking to do, are like replacing our email system. Our current vendor has notified us that as of June 30th, they will no longer be doing email. We're looking at replacing our financial software. That's going to be, a huge project to undertake, if that's the direction the town decides to go into. We have a wireless network that we installed to connecting all our buildings together 10 years ago. The bandwidth just isn't sufficient for what we're using it for. At the day, we were just doing data entry. Now we've got video surveillance running over it. We've got telephones. We've got communications equipment. We've got servers replicating each other. So that's another task that's going to need to be replaced. Obviously you've heard from our assessor. We're trying to resurrect our GIS system right now. That's another huge project. We're in the middle of trying to work with a number of interns, trying to assist us in getting it back to working order, as well as working with Mass GIS and Mass Highways is helping us out a lot. Back to the technology budget itself, I am trying to replace the tech support person that's been vacant for going on 6 years now. 30 years ago, we had 3 full-time employees with 2 computers and a bunch of dumb terminals. We've increased the budget, not 10, not 100, but over 1,000%, in the workload and with less staff, and it's something that does need to be addressed. On the expense side, there has been a slight increase in the expenses. We have virtualized a lot of our servers, and the equipment that we purchased a few years ago is now due for maintenance. The annual maintenance increase is $38,500 a year that we didn't have to spend last year. And that's for the 2 storage arrays, one at the police department and the one at town hall. We've also had an increase from our financial software vendor. They've gone up about $8,000 a year in their maintenance for the accounting and tax billing collections packages. I've also added a little bit of money in there for training. With the new equipment that we've purchased a few years ago, under the contract that was signed, there was no training included. Unfortunately for the 2 IT people, I've got about $19,000 I'm trying to budget for training. The training for basic training for this equipment and the software that it uses is about $23,000 per person. I'm trying to budget 19 at the moment. We're trying to see what we can do between the 2 of us that are staffed there and maybe splitting up the training costs because it is quite expensive for the basic training as well as the time out of the office. You're looking at probably 4 weeks worth of training, and to have both of us out of the office for 4 weeks and $40,000, I didn't think that was in the budget at the moment. So, we've had no training in the IT department in the past 10 years. There's something that does definitely need to be addressed. Training is very important to employees as far as productivity. And if the IT department isn't trained properly to train the staff properly, was loss of productivity. Other than that, pretty much the rest of the budget has been, the same as it has been over the past, 4 or 5 years. There's about 60% of the budget is nothing but license fees and software maintenance fees from our software vendors. The other 30% of the budget is repair maintenance of certain equipment. We're only budgeting $6,500 for the upcoming year for repair and maintenance of computers. That's certainly nowhere near enough, but it's a start. The GIS issue that the assessor brought up has become an issue with the Department of Revenue. It's more of a requirement now. So I have put some funds in there in the budget. I have put about $8,000 in there for GIS. We currently have 1 license with ArcView, which is a software package used for GIS. Obviously, 1 user license. It's in the planning department. We're going to need a few more licenses. The assessor's office would like to use it, the police department, IT, Harbor Master, Board of Health. We've been doing an awful lot of maps. We just did a presentation Tuesday night at the Selectmen's meeting of emergency dispense routes that we did for the Board of Health. The Harbor Master is doing parking maps and mooring maps and shellfish maps. So every department is finding a good use for it. So it's a tool that I feel that the town really does need, to help, with services as well as, department's ability to function.
So that's, when you talk about, I just want everybody at home to understand what we're talking about here as far as licensing. So every different application, okay, of that particular
Product.
software, you've got to pay a licensing fee.
You have to pay a
for
licensing fee for every user that uses it.
every single
Every
user
seat.
that uses it.
So every seat, and it's the
Every
same
seat.
with Microsoft, it's the same with most software packages that you buy today is,
Right.
the vendors have found the way to make the most money is, is per seat or per computer that's installed on.
Right.
So either way, it does, especially when you're talking about a town that has, 200 plus in computers,
Mhm.
200 plus employees, those fees add up very quickly.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Do you have responsibility then to negotiate the multi-user contracts and things like that for standard software? I mean, are there limits as to what people can put on these computers and?
There are
Yeah.
limits to what people, can put on their computers. We do have, firewalls where we're blocking, numerous, sites that employees can go to. But getting back to the licensing, the state does negotiate some of those fees for us better than what we could actually get
Yourself.
ourselves. I find in other instances that, it doesn't hurt to try to negotiate your own fees, because the state does add a fee for themselves for everything that you purchase off the state contract. There's a 2% fee of everything you purchase that goes to the state, just for being on the contract.
Yeah, but if you get a 25 to 40%
So
discount,
if
that's
we can
probably a
get
good
it,
deal.
yes. We do get government discounts. Unfortunately, we don't get education discounts. We're going to get into the communications budget, which includes our email system. For instance, one of the email systems we're looking at is Google, going to Gmail. Well, the school's cost is free. They just have to pay for the archiving unit. Our cost is $25,000.
Right.
It is a huge difference in pricing. Our cost for Microsoft licensing is a lot less than the average person is going to pay off the shelf, but our cost is still per license approximately $120 a user, whereas at the schools, I think it's somewhere around $25 a user.
But you determine what can go on those computers, and you negotiate through the state the software that's there, because I
Right,
mean,
we do not allow the employees or staff members to
put
install
on
anything on their
anything else on
computers
there.
without our knowledge.
okay.
Because it does end up with an issue of
It-
somebody downloading a program, and next thing you know, there's an invoice coming for licenses.
Well, it's a best practice too, if you've got to maintain these things, because that was one of the things that people learned very quickly, is if you let people put in all kinds of stuff, when you come in to repair it and figure out what's wrong, you
Yep.
couldn't, because you didn't know what was there or what revision was there. So someone in your position really has to say, this is what you get to put on it, and this is the revisions that
Yep,
will.
we're trying to limit as much as we can. We
Yeah.
don't limit everything. There are some things that we do allow employees to install on their computers.
Okay, well, that's,
But we're we've just virtualized most of our servers. We've been doing over the past couple of years. We've got, out of our 57 servers right now, 40 of them are virtualized. That's why we're looking to get additional staffing, is because of the additional work. If we were to, just for instance, if we were to take those 57 servers and every day just spend 5 minutes logging into those servers, checking the status, making sure they're up and running, and those servers could be our financial applications, could be payroll, could be our phone systems. If you take those 57, multiply it out by 5 minutes, you're talking about 5.5 hours a day just to log into servers, just to make sure that they're up and running and
So you're buying a service for that instead of buying the hardware.
So,
if you can.
in this case, there's a lot of time that is spent, after hours,
Right.
Nights, weekends. We don't check the servers every day just because it takes so much time. Unfortunately, it's at the point where, you're waiting for something to break before you look at it because you just don't have time to look at it. You gotta wait for somebody to notify you that something's not working properly. And we should be on a proactive, approach to it instead of reactive.
Okay.
I have one other question nobody does.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Where is buying the hardware in this budget, or do the individual departments
We
buy it?
have, the last few years, we have not bought any hardware. We've gone through capital about 3 years ago and purchased some storage arrays through a capital project, a virtualization project. But for the most part, desktops, computers, any other types of hardware, we have not been budgeting for.
So they buy them out
so,
of their own budget?
If they need it that bad and they need it, they buy it out of their own budget, but for the most part, we've been going without it. Just because the budgets have been
That's it.
cut so thin that, we just can't afford to purchase them. Routers and switches, I've been lucky enough to be considering that part of our wireless network, which is being paid for by Comcast and Verizon.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna ask you that, good.
So, we're in the process of negotiating the new 10-year agreement with Comcast. Actually, we were supposed to meet tomorrow, but the meeting was just canceled. Part of that is we get 4.5% of all their revenues from their subscribers in town. 4% goes directly to the TV studio. We're keeping 0.5% ourselves to maintain, which installed our network that connects the buildings together so that we have communications.
We looking at both Verizon and
We've got that in both
Comcast?
Verizon and Comcast contracts.
bidding on it?
Comcast's contract is up in March, and Verizon's contract is up in 2 years.
Do you play them against each other, or?
Really cannot play them against each other. They know the game. They've been playing it just as long as
Okay.
we have. The game basically is, we negotiated the original contracts with Comcast was the last round. It was their predecessors prior to that. Verizon's the new game in town. And basically, we had a stipulation in the contract that basically says, we can't, any other carrier coming in has to give the same deal or better, or else we have to give back to the original carrier we negotiated the contract with.
Okay. Yeah.
So,
you're not like the lucky residents of the town? This
Yes.
is one of the rare towns that has both of them.
We are one of
It's
the
a
rare
real
towns.
benefit.
Verizon has stopped their build out of their network in
Yeah.
a lot of the communities. We were one of the last ones that
To do it, yeah.
they came into. The downside is, we can't negotiate rates or programming.
Okay.
Okay. So what we got now, communication?
Communications. Communications is pretty straightforward. There's only about 4 line items in the communications budget. One of them is the annual maintenance of the phone systems. That's currently at $18,000. That is for police department, town hall, municipal maintenance, EMS, library, water pollution control. Those are the maintenance contracts for all the town-owned buildings, facilities for the phone systems. The second line item is actually there's $26,600. That's actually for our phone lines, the actual cost of the phone lines. We have about 109 phone lines going into the town phone systems, which includes the emergency call boxes at the beaches and a few various other locations that we've got the emergency call boxes. And that also includes our emergency 911 system that we're sharing with the Wareham Water Department. We're splitting the costs 50-50. The other one is, the big line item is, I got $35,000 budgeting for, that's our actual internet fees for our internet locations. We've got Verizon coming in town hall. I've got Comcast going into the police department with redundancy built into them. So if one system goes down, fails over to the other. We've got 2 lines going into the library. One is being paid for by their coalition, the other one's being paid for by the town. And as well as that also includes our email system. You know, again, our email system has been, have been notified that they will no longer be doing it. You know, unfortunately, our current cost that we've been paying for our email is about $3,000 and about another $3,000 for the archiving unit, for a total of 6. We've been discussing with, or negotiating with Google as well as Microsoft hosted solutions. It's going to skyrocket from $6,000 to $25,000
Holy smoke. That's it.
for email.
That's it.
That's it.
We got no other option.
You know, our other option is to try to bring email in-house and get an Exchange server. The cost for the Exchange server is pretty expensive. You know, the issue comes down twofold. Is A, do we want to open up our firewalls to allow incoming traffic for email into the town systems, which I do not want to do if I don't have to. The other issue is now you've got an email system that, with the staff that we have, you would need to migrate on an annual basis to new servers. You know, pretty much every year. It has to be up and running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You know, which means, you know, a lot of maintenance and resources to maintain that for almost 400 email boxes between town and police and all the boards and committees that we've given email addresses to. So it's quite, you know, it's going to be expensive either way. In talking with the town administrator, you know, the idea of not opening up our firewalls, and, you know, in dealing with, you know, email coming into our servers, and email, you know, with possible viruses attached, you know, let somebody else deal with those problems. It has been our philosophy.
What does the school do? They're doing something?
The schools were using the same email system we were using, but a year ago, just about a year ago, they switched over to Google.
Have they had a problem with?
They haven't had a problem. You know, the difference is, you know, theirs is free, ours is not. It's free to education, not to us.
What about the schools on internet access too? Is that?
The school, they pay for the school has their own IT department. They have their own staffing, and they have their own internet that they bring into their own buildings. They get free Comcast to each one of their buildings where we do not. And then if they want higher bandwidth, they have to pay for it because, you know, Comcast only offers them the lowest option that they have as the free option. But the town does maintain the financial software that the school department uses. So you know, the IT department, we do manage that equipment and the software that they use, and we provide the communications that connects all the school buildings together as well as all the town buildings. So you know, their IT staff basically goes from what the cable comes into the building to deals with everything that's inside the buildings, as long as it doesn't deal with you know, financial software.
Questions? No?
That's good.
Good? Okay.
Thank you.
I do have to say that we're filling that position you've been waiting for 6 years, since I sat in
It's-
this chair.
It's, you know, it's been vacant, you know, each year I try and, you know, see where it goes, and it doesn't hurt to try. You
Well,
know, if-
with I mean, we've been sitting here talking about, you know, other departments, getting, more technology savvy, and yet that expands our technology department,
You
so,
know, part of the problem is, you know, as departments are getting cut in staff, we're looking to the IT department to replace that staff, either through IT resources or or through technology, which includes, our support of that new technology. So on one side, you may be letting go of staff on one side to cut the budget. You're adding to other departments.
Exactly.
But that's what industries and, and the banking industry is a prime example. ATMs replaced a lot of people, changed a lot of things.
But you need the
but
technology
huge
staff to
investment.
maintain those ATMs.
A huge investment in
Yep.
IT.
Okay, we thank you very much for being here,
Thank you.
explaining everything to us.
If you have any questions, obviously give me a call or an email or let Derek know, and we'll get you answers.
Don't bother Matt. He's busy.
1-800-DEREK is speed dial.
All right.
Thank you, Matt.
Okay.
Thanks, Matt. Sorry.
No problem.
I figured-
Anybody else?
No, I figured you